The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health.
Morning, everybody. Welcome to What's Happening in Health. So grateful you are sharing part of your Sunday morning with us. Got a great show for you today with some very personal stories, beginning with those who work with the Alzheimer's Foundation. June is Alzheimer's Awareness Month, and Dana Ritchie's in the house. She is with that foundation. Hello to you. Good to have you back. She wants all of us to know some of the early warning signs, as well as some new research to work against this disease that's in the works. And along with that, families who have loved ones with this illness speaking up. They help all of us have a better understanding. So here with a very personal story of his own, we want to welcome Bill Crockett. Hello to you. Good to have you here today. We are grateful that he is talking about what more of us need to know. First, though, got a quick headline for you. Your dog could be helping protect your child from a condition that shows up on the skin. A study by the University of Edinburgh found children at risk for eczema were less likely to develop this condition if they owned a dog. It is believed that exposure to dogs early in life can help suppress skin inflammation, but experts do caution that in some cases that exposure can worsen the condition. All right, on now to our top story this half hour. It's in healthy caregiving, and it is not a pill, but a patch that one man says has been life-changing in healing his wound.
How many times I get to ring it?
His name is Terry Williams, and he certainly has something to celebrate. You see, just a short time ago, after part of his foot was removed due to an infection,
The vascular doctor told me I was going to lose half my leg.
that changed when he met this guy,
Mr. Terry.
Hey, Doc, how you doing?
Dr. Greg Worley.
Dr. Worley said, we're going to save it. And he did.
Dr. Worley did it with the help of what's called the 3C patch. It was full of Terry's personal infection-fighting cells and platelets.
Platelets are full of growth factors that stimulate new blood growth, new tissue growth, and new skin growth.
As this video provided by Reaplic shows, to create the 3C patch,
what we do is we take the patient's blood, we spin it down in a centrifuge, and we create a three-dimensional patch of just the patient's own growth factors and healing factors.
the patch with those growth factors is then placed on a wound for about a week.
Those actually stimulate our patient's own body to start forming new blood vessels, new tissue, and new skin.
As this team showed me, each week a new patch is created.
And the patch is actually going to be right on top.
Little by little, Terry says, thanks to a doctor and a medical team that wouldn't give up,
He's my hero.
Terry got back on his feet. He can now walk out of this wound care center with his wife Linda of 56 years, all patched up and completely healed.
Now, if you do meet medical criteria, this healing patch is covered by most medical insurance plans. On now to Healthy on the Go. A travel warning continues this summer about especially international travel, especially if you're not vaccinated against measles. Measles is a highly contagious respiratory illness, and it is spread to others through coughing and sneezing. Pediatric infectious disease specialists at the Cleveland Clinic say much of the outbreak that we've had so far in the country started with foreign travel.
Most cases of measles in this country and most of the outbreaks that we've had began with someone who was not fully vaccinated against measles traveling internationally, where measles is incredibly common. So right now, there are widespread cases of measles in most parts of the world, including Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East.
The CDC now says if you are not fully vaccinated against this illness, they suggest that you postpone international and even U.S. air travel. At least one outbreak so far has been linked to a passenger who spread this illness to others on an airplane. All right, just ahead, we call it clean eating. It's good for body and soul, but we explain why it's so good in Gut Instinct. And Dana Ritchie's in the house. She is with the Alzheimer's Foundation, wants us to know some of the early warning signs and new research in the works. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Metro and Gastro Health.
In Gut Instinct today, if you want to do good things for body and soul, a local woman says, go with your gut. Shauna Helton lives with what is called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. It is a collection of symptoms from a connective tissue disorder, and it causes especially joint pain and fatigue. She started clean eating with her daughter Sophia, who is now 3. She says staying with minimally processed whole foods has helped her ease symptoms, and cooking these foods has done a whole lot more.
It gave me life back. It gave me passion. It was like painting artwork. To me, dealing with different colors of foods and those kind of things, it felt like I was conquering something. I was getting my power back in my life.
A lot of research now shows that these foods help the microbiomes in the gut to balance, and that can help fight autoimmune diseases such as the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. All right, well, on now to Alzheimer's Awareness Month. We want to welcome Dana Ritchie back in the house. Tell us who you are and what you do.
My name's Dana Ritchie. I'm the program director for the Alzheimer's Association here in Greater Cincinnati.
So sad that we need you. Your growth
Right.
has just continued, and I know we have statistics that it just is mounting now, a diagnosis every...
Yeah, so over 7 million Americans now have Alzheimer's, and we know there's over 236,000 people in Ohio that have Alzheimer's, and that's just one type of dementia. So unfortunately, that's increased just from last year. Last year we were saying 6 million, now it's up to 7 in the United States.
So with something growing that quickly, some would say, is it a discovery process, or are we really all trending?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. The good news, like you said, kind of double-edged sword, but the good news is we know more about early detection. We have been educating people on what signs and symptoms to look for. People are talking to their physicians more. So there are people that have been living with the disease and are now getting diagnosed. But your biggest risk factor is your age, and we are in a situation here in the United States where we have an aging population. So it's a little bit of both. Some is the science, and some is unfortunately just the disease.
So we have just a little video that you've shared with us from your organization. Tell us a little bit about your mission and what this month is about to you. What do you want people to know?
Yeah, so our mission is a world without Alzheimer's and all other dementia. So although we are the Alzheimer's Association, we're helping families with all types of dementia, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontotemporal dementia. For caregivers, a lot of the things that we have to deal with in those situations are similar regardless of the diagnosis. And so this month is specifically Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month, so that people can understand more about brain health, how to take care of their brain as they age, and then those signs or symptoms that they need to be aware of that are not normal aging.
So let's talk about that. I know there was just some information that a blood test may help you. Has that been approved yet? Where are we in this journey?
Yes, so the FDA did just approve a blood test for biomarkers that will show if you have Alzheimer's or not. And the reason this is a big deal is previously, for you to be diagnosed with Alzheimer's, we'd rule out some other things that could be happening to you, like thyroid issue, vitamin issue, UTI, dehydration, but then you move on to more testing like MRIs or PET scans, or what fluid was being used was spinal fluid, so spinal tap being very invasive, and now instead we can just have a small sample of your blood to find those biomarkers. So that's key for a lot of reasons. It's less invasive, but also think about more rural areas where we may not have access to things like PET scans and a good physician that can pull that spinal tap fluid. So this will help more people know sooner if they have this disease.
So what's interesting about that is, would it be, or how does it work? Is it like you have any of those biomarkers, or are they like higher as you get into it, or do we know?
Yeah, so it's looking, there's 2 types of genes that will indicate if you have Alzheimer's. One is a risk gene, and one is a deterministic gene. The deterministic gene is an obvious thing, but actually very few people with Alzheimer's have that deterministic gene. So it's looking for these risk genes that increase as we get get older. And so those kind of biomarkers, we now know what we're looking for in the blood and can find that disease sooner then.
So what's a little bit, I think, frustrating about that is you're like, so what, I find it sooner, we still don't have a cure. You know, what's the advantage to that though?
Yeah, there's a couple. So there are now FDA approved treatments that will keep you in that earlier stage longer. If you do have all the hallmarks for Alzheimer's, the type of protein that is overproduced with Alzheimer's. So there are now some treatment options that can give you higher quality of life longer. But also, you know, there's planning that's needed to be done. Unfortunately, you'll want to make sure you have legal affairs in order, financial affairs in order. You could participate in your future healthcare plans, and then you can enjoy life, get some things off your bucket list. You know, unfortunately, we should all live like tomorrow's our last day, but we don't. And this is a disease that's years of progression. So you will have years potentially that you can have a high quality of life and put things in place to stay at that higher quality longer.
The early intervention thing is huge. I know you guys have worked hard on that for research.
Yes.
So then we made a graphic. You know, we always talk about healthy diet matters, exercise, but it really can and does it not? You've got just a few key things here that matter.
Yeah, there's more and more research talking about our lifestyle. In fact, there's a very large piece of research that the association has invested in that's going to be coming out next month that's all about these lifestyle changes and how they can keep us cognitively healthy longer. So it's definitely about eating right, healthy diet. You know, your heart and your brain are best friends, but even things like sleep. I know we've had that conversation before, but we've learned about all the great things that are happening when we sleep in our brain that are necessary to keep us, you know, cognitively whole. And then small things like protecting your head. I mean, that seems common, but, you know, I was 50 and I fell in the shower, and the whole time I was thinking, keep your head up, don't hit your head, right? And so there's all kinds of ways we can fall and hit our head, and we don't have to be 95 for that to happen. So even just common sense things, you know, putting some treads in your shower, getting up at loose mats and carpets and rugs, you know, all those kinds of things are just common sense things we can do.
Well, I know you are a great resource for that. They sound like common
you.
sense, but we always say that, you know, that doesn't mean we all have it.
Easier said than done.
And I love that you brought up the head protection, because we are learning that's associated now with a lot of brain diseases, and that's really important.
Yes.
So we have a link to the Alzheimer's Association at what'shappeninginhealth.com.
Yes.
We have all these great resources with them, but we're going to ask you to stick around,
okay, because
we want to introduce you to a gentleman who has had this in his family. Bill, I'm going to have you swing around because we're going to need to see your face on that camera right over there. There we go. We want to welcome Bill to the show coming up next. He's going to share a little bit more about his story. And we're going to be talking about how dieting can play a role in your mental health and what we need to know about that. So, and the Bill I was talking to is Bill Crockett. He's here to tell us his personal story. His wife had Alzheimer's disease. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Area Development District.
In high-tech health today, artificial intelligence is opening new ways to turn photos into image abuse. So-called nudify tools are offering to take uploaded photos of people, turn them into virtual pornography, replacing clothing with a computer-generated naked body. A CBS News investigation found hundreds of ads promoting deep fake nudity tools on Meta platforms, including Instagram and Facebook. Meta says that these ads violate their safety rules, and they have made efforts to sort of tone them down. They also say people behind the tools constantly evolve them. That helps avoid detection. The author and influencer Jess Davies says these acts can be detrimental to the mental health of the victims, of course.
The effect, I think, really cannot be underestimated. I've interviewed victim survivors who tell me that this has changed the way they exist, the way they move in the world, people that they trust.
Boy, I believe that stuff. Last month, President Trump signed a bill that makes publishing intimate images that are real or AI generated without consent a federal crime. If a victim asks, tech companies also have to take them down. Davies says this issue extends beyond the government or tech platforms, and that it's up to society to call out these behaviors. In Hope You Know today, which is what we hope you know about your mental health each week, too much dieting could have a negative effect on your mental health. 28,000 adults were surveyed to see if they experienced depression. Researchers found it was more common for those on a calorie-restrictive diet, particularly guys and those considered overweight. The quality of the diet also matters, and those who ate processed foods, refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, processed meats, and sweets were more likely to report higher levels of depression than those who ate more of a Mediterranean-style diet with fruits, vegetables, fish, and whole grains. Critics say the study was flawed, but either way, we all know dieting can impact our mental health. All right, on now to our friends from the Alzheimer's Association. We're continuing a discussion, but we want to meet Bill. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how you doing today?
Tell us a little bit about you. I know you had a wife with Alzheimer's.
I did. My wife Lynn and I were married for 54 and a half years. Have 4 grown children, 12 grandchildren, and Lynn was the center of our universe. She loved family. She loved gardening. Anything involving the grandkids, her kids, that's what made her tick. So she was a very, very special person. She's missed by all that loved her, and for those that never met her,
you're lost.
You're lost, absolutely.
Yeah.
But,
so we have a few photos of her. I just want to let people so that we can share that. Tell me a little bit how long she lived with this journey, and what did you notice initially that led to that diagnosis?
She had a couple short-term memory issues, nothing really significant. In day-to-day life, you just kind of react with each other. I mean, I had just stepped aside from my practice down in LaGrange, and we're enjoying times with the grandkids, and you don't really pay attention to a lot of the things that are minute changes. So her sisters had mentioned a couple of times that they thought she might be having some memory lapses.
What?
Just short-term memory, that they'd tell her something and she would come back and talk to them a couple minutes later and need to have the same thing repeated to her again. The kids had kind of mentioned the same thing at family functions. So we were due for her annual physical, and our GP, Gina Grove, did a series of tests that her annual physical was coming up. So we did that. And Gina said, we got to do the MRIs, CAT scans, we got to do more testing, but she said, this is worse than what I suspected. So
I bet your heart just fell.
It did. Her mom had gone through an elder onset, and Lynn actually was her mother's caretaker for a couple of years in our home. So it was something that, she had accepted. It's time to pass the baton and let the old guy come out. And but
So I wonder, I'm pretty sure you've told me that a family history is a big marker.
It can increase your risk,
yes,
right. To have a full blood relative. So a parent or a sibling, yes, increases your risk.
Yeah. So you got an official diagnosis.
Got a diagnosis, and then went to the neuropsychologist for a series of testing so that he could give his expertise and opinions. And then just kind of sit back and meet the neurologist. And I expressed to Dana when we met a couple weeks ago, the part of the frustration for the family is that it's not a hurry up and wait, it's just wait. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that can be done significantly. So you go to the neurologist, you're energized, you're what do we got, what are the new instrumentalities that are out there that can help me help her. And they did a couple of tests and said, see you in 6 months, see you in a year.
And I know that's what you're working for, to try to have these earlier markers and to have these newer medicines. But
more treatments.
Right. One of the reasons that we wanted you here, and I really appreciate this month because I'm sure it's not easy to talk about, is, now that you've had the journey, what do you want other families to know?
It's the end of I guess, a nerve-wracking period. It's the best thing that can happen to be able to be that close. I was very fortunate in having Lynn be at home. It was home hospice. She had a fall in November of 2023, and there were two options. We try to manage at home, or we can do home hospice. We can do this, and they said the home hospice, the criteria is that an expectancy of 6 months, and then she's eligible for it. And I said, well, can you tell me she's going to be here more than 6 months? No. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years.
So as you go through this, though, I guess to kind of conclude, what is it that you say, here's what I learned, here's what I want families to know? I
learned of her strength, of my strength, and our family's strength, and our friends, the caregivers that we had help. It's something you can't do on your own, but my goodness, it taught me more about life than anything I've ever experienced before.
And that is because?
Because I was able to give her everything that she had given my family for 54 years.
You never know how strong you are until you have to be that strong.
You're asked to do something and you suck it up, buttercup. That's, I tell my kids all the time.
Spoken like a true attorney.
That's right. Yeah.
God bless you. You have not lost your sense of humor.
No, it really is. It's one of the most exhilarating things I've ever been through in my life. I miss her terribly, but we were best friends, and I'm just glad that I was able to have her on that journey. She was at home. She was in her bedroom until the very end, and that I hear the stories of people who have the caregiving homes
and they do a wonderful job.
They do a fantastic job.
It's exhausting, but do you hear that a lot, that having them home is a blessing?
Yeah, it is. And I think the other thing that Bill's story speaks to is hospice, right? So she actually lived on hospice over a year time, because we never really know when it's the last 6 months.
And we always think of that as like a 3-day process.
Exactly, but he got help much sooner, and that's why she was able to stay at home. People really underestimate what they can get from hospice. It's free, it's paid for by your Medicare, and you can get a lot of resources from them much longer than you would think, like you said, just 2 weeks before you pass. It doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah, well, thank you both for having what isn't an easy conversation with us. We're going to continue it throughout the month, but we know that unless you share real stories, which is hard to do, we don't get these.
No problem. Glad to help.
Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
All right, just ahead, some new research on a new finding about tobacco smoke. We'll share it. What we all need to know, what's happening in health. Quick headline before we go. In legal medicine, toxic third-hand smoke residue reaches many children, even in non-smoking homes. Researchers at Cincinnati Children's Hospital say this third-hand smoke is toxic residue from tobacco smoke, and it lingers in dust, old carpets, couches, other surfaces. It was found on the hands and the saliva of more than 900 of the 1,000 children tested in a recent study, including children living in smoke-free homes. Here's what you need to know. Kind of just explains what this is. First-hand smoke is when you smoke. Second-hand is when you breathe in someone else's. And third-hand is when it's often touched by others on a surface. Study shows this third-hand smoke may pose dangers, especially to children. All right, coming up next half hour, we want to talk to you a little bit about suicide prevention. There is a family here that wants us to know what we need to know, along with Cincinnati Children's Hospital. Stay with us.
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by Mayfield Braden Spine.
Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on What's Happening in Health in our second half hour. Got a great show left for you today with an important warning. Would you know if someone you love was at risk for suicide? It's not usually something we talk about, even if we see a young person depressed. But that's one of the reasons we are talking about it today. I want to welcome Tanya and her son Kevin. They are here today to talk a little bit about a very personal story. And Dr. Melissa Young and Dr. Brian Kurtz from the Zero Suicide team at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They are joining us with a very special message of hope. We appreciate you talking about this part of good health. And we also have a team in-house with a member that needs to get off the list. In Waiting for Life, we welcome Leroy, who is waiting for a kidney. And he's part of a team here with Jenny, his daughter, and his beautiful granddaughter, Abigail. We are so glad to have you here to share your journey. They hope you will share their story with others. But first, a quick headline for you. Christ Hospital Health Network partnering with Mayfield Brain and Spine to bring advanced stroke treatments to patients in our region. They hope it will provide expansion to reduce injury risk from strokes and bring more cutting-edge care to save lives. The team you see here, part of those joint efforts. It'll mean faster care, better outcomes. 1 in 3 stroke patients live, but they live disabled after suffering a stroke, and they hope to reduce those odds. All right, on now to our top story this half hour. It's in your healthy future. New study says moms are stressed out. A local mom sharing her story today so other moms will know they are not alone. This is Katie Harper and her daughter Charlotte. Katie wants others to know that sometimes it's okay not to be okay.
A lot of women don't know everything that I know about what to look for.
Little Charlotte is now 2 and quite the bundle of energy.
Oh, there's a big drop off.
But Katie says a short time after Charlotte was born,
it hit me like a ton of bricks. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't eat. I cried all the time.
Luckily, Katie also works for the National Alliance for Mental Illness, or NAMI as we know it, and knew she was in danger.
It felt like the walls were closing in on me. All I wanted to do was hold her. I didn't want anyone near her. And it was a few weeks of just like this intense, scary darkness and anxiety.
Because Katie's feelings hit early, she reached out to her women's health provider and got counseling and support right away. But this new study published in JAMA Internal Medicine shows many women are struggling from early on in parenthood and not getting that help. After surveying nearly 190,000 mothers over 8 years, researchers found only about 25% could say that their mental health was excellent. It was about 40% at the start of the study.
We don't talk enough about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety and how that has such an influence on like the whole life cycle of a mom, right?
Katie has continued counseling, she says, and regularly takes medication to manage her mental health and anxiety. These concerns so common now among moms, she says NAMI recently updated its guidance online. Katie told me she has mental health training and motherhood is still hard. So if you're struggling too, she wants you to know this.
It's common, but it's not normal, right? So I think a lot of women hear, oh, well, this is just what it is. So, you know, I have a baby and I'm going to feel this way. Well, you don't have to feel this way. There's help.
Well said, my friend. She suggests you reach out for that help by calling 988, which can direct you to resources in your area. And NAMI can also help you with that online. And listen to this today. New study raising more concerns that when you lose your hearing, you also raise the risk you'll lose your memory. 1 in 3 cases now of Alzheimer's and dementia in older adults may be linked to hearing concerns. Experts warn that even mild hearing loss can strain the brain, affecting memory and thinking over time. They recommend early interventions such as using hearing aids, which studies show can slow cognitive decline by nearly 50%. Here's Dr. Matthew Kist of Lund Hearing Care and Associates.
If we're not actively using that muscle, if it's not getting repetitions, in this case, speech or sound in general, that specific muscle in the brain starts to atrophy. And if you don't use it, you tend to lose it over time.
If you would like more information about your hearing, please call 859-342-5846. All right, just ahead, we ask a nurse about job stress. And there's sometimes when you leave a bit more bummed out than others. Yeah, we know. And we welcome Tanya, Kevin, Melissa, and Brian to talk about the importance of suicide prevention. We'll talk to them next on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Life Enriching Communities, NKADD, Hawksworth, and Aptiva Health.
In our Ask a Nurse today, we are asking if certain jobs make you more prone to depression than others. New research from JAMA Network Open says yes. It found the careers in healthcare, food preparation, and service have the highest rates of diagnosed depression. Manual labor jobs tended to have lower rates of depression. Study also noted that female workers have double the rates of diagnosed depression compared to male workers. It may just be, however, because women are more likely to seek help. All right, in Healthy Innovations today, Miami University launching a new podcast this week. It focuses on student wellness, and it's starting with a topic that hits close to home. We're talking a lot about it today, mental health. University President Greg Crawford is hosting the series. It's called In Such a Place. One of the first episodes dives into how student mental health has changed since the pandemic.
First question for you. The pandemic seemed to elevate mental health issues in schools. And how have you seen the scope of mental health challenges evolve since then? And what are the most urgent concerns that you see facing students and educators today?
So even before the pandemic, we knew that mental health concerns affected approximately 1 in 5 of our young people, so about 20%. And those students were experiencing a whole range of things like anxiety and depression.
School leaders say the podcast is just one more way to prioritize wellness, offer students in the community more tools to understand and support mental health. And speaking of mental health, we want to welcome our team from Cincinnati Children's Hospital. So glad to have you here. Tell us who you are and what you do.
I'm Tanya Schneider, and I'm a care manager in neurobehavioral psychiatry, and I'm Kevin's mom.
Kevin's mom, that's her official title today.
I'm Kevin Galloway. I work in Rainbow Cafe at Children's Hospital.
All right, we're glad to have you here. Let's find out the rest of our team.
I'm Dr. Melissa Young. I'm a clinical psychologist at Cincinnati Children's, and I co-lead our Zero Suicide implementation team with Dr. Brian Kurtz.
I'm Dr. Brian Kurtz, child and adolescent psychiatrist, co-lead Zero Suicide with Dr. Melissa Young.
All right, well, we are grateful to have the whole team here today. Thank you. Kevin, you are our star, and you are here because you understand a little bit about this team and how they help, so share a little bit of your story.
I want to share my story to help others dealing with thoughts of suicide, and hopefully help with that.
So tell me a little bit about what happened that made you think about suicide.
When it happened, we just transferred schools, we just moved. I was dealing with bullying, girl problems, of course, young boy.
We girls can do that,
yeah,
huh?
It was just a bunch of life things.
Kind of got overloaded.
Yeah.
And so what happened? You felt like there was no other way out?
In the moment, I did. But looking back now, I realize that that wasn't the way to do it. I should have talked to my mom and told her how I felt, because she knew I was depressed, like depression in a young teen, normal, but she didn't know I was that depressed.
So can I ask Mom about that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
So what were you noticing?
So, I mean, we had discussed it. I had called the school counselor and said, you know, hey, he's experiencing some bullying. And we had talked about going to a counselor himself. He had talked with the school counselor in the school district that we were in. Him and I had a very good relationship and very open, and we spoke pretty openly about mental health issues. I just didn't realize it had gotten this bad for him, and that in his mind he felt like he didn't have another choice. And I think that's why we wanted to share our story, because I think teens find themselves in a situation where they're overwhelmed and they can make like a long-term decision over a short-term problem.
Mm-hmm. So who's comfortable telling me what happened? Did you find him unconscious? What were some of the circumstances?
So it's a
how about I handle some of this?
Yeah.
He had a snow day, was home from school, had someone watching him. I was at work. I had been driven to work, so I didn't have a car. There was a gun in the house in a safe, and he had gotten it when I didn't know it, and he had used that. And so his brother, who has autism, did find him and did get help from the person who was keeping an eye on them. And And then, we ended up at Children's. So I got the call and just was driven by the police to Children's Hospital.
And you survived.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of feel that there's a special plan for your life?
Yeah.
And this is part of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati Children's played a huge part of that and saving him. He was at Children's, he was in ICU for 63 days, and he was at the hospital a total of almost 6 months.
Wow. How are you now?
I'm a lot better. My life's going good. I work at Cincinnati Children's.
You like your life.
Yeah.
And you help others by sharing, I've struggled with this. So
Yeah.
good for you. What a difference that can make. We're going to continue this conversation, but I want to make sure that I just ask you. So this is sort of what the Zero Suicide Program is all about.
I think when I heard about Kevin's story, I realized he was kind of a 1 in a million, and that we don't often encounter patients and families in this situation. But after I got to know Kevin a little bit, I realized just in terms of the strength and the ability to convey this message of hope that really is a 1 in a million phenomenon. We're working in lots of different ways at Cincinnati Children's to try to prevent youth suicide. And I think understanding how things can be unexpected and not something that is clearly visible down the road before a suicide attempt happens is an important part of that.
And so what does the zero mean?
That's a great question. Zero means that when we're thinking about patient safety, the only acceptable number of losses is 0. So it's really calling healthcare systems to this aspirational goal of zero suicide, with the recognition that when we strive for 0, patient deaths and suicide attempts, organizations function very differently than looking for a reduction. So we've really committed ourselves, and our institution has, to continue system change and community outreach and hearing the voices of youth and families, and including Kevin and Tanya, to partner together to really drive change within the greater Cincinnati area on youth suicide.
Well, this is excellent. We are having you stick around for this half hour, so stand by. We're going to come back. What I would like to know is what you now want other parents to know coming up, and a little bit about your prevention strategies, because I think a lot of us maybe don't know how to intervene, and you're one of the lucky ones, but that doesn't always happen. We are so grateful to you. All right, we are just going to share more about this group on what's happening in health.com in case you're watching and you want to know some of those, and you can't stay with us the rest of this half hour, but we will be right back with more of this team. We're also going to tell you a little bit about stress with money coming up. It can be hard on your family and your health. Some resources and your healthy rights next on what's happening in health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Miami University, the Vein Center of Cincinnati, and Lindner Center of Hope.
In your healthy rights today, if you're noticing more calls about your IRS debt, not your imagination. For the first time, the IRS is stepping up collections since the pandemic. Last week on our show, we asked tax attorney Bill Hesh all about this.
People have not been contacted with the IRS since COVID. And so now you're getting letters and you're getting notices. They're filing tax liens, and that's where companies out there will contact you and say, hey, we help with debt relief with the IRS. And so there are companies out there that they specialize in that.
Now, in order to spot a scam, if you see companies are calling, ask a few questions. Are they trying just to get your personal information? So look for anonymous ownership, no address for a company, unprofessional staff, or even excessive fees to provide you help. All right, we want to continue this conversation with Tanya and Kevin. So what do you wish we know, or what do you hope we know, if someone's in a situation like the one you felt like you were in?
I hope that someone will pick up on the
sadness
signs of someone struggling with thoughts of suicide and depression and all of that.
So were there signs in hindsight that you think, I mean, she thought you had a good relationship and you come talk to her?
I think we had a unique experience that there weren't a lot of signs. He might have been sleeping a lot. He might have been, you know, the change in routine. He was acting out a little more than he had before, but they were pretty vague.
Did you think about this for a long time before you actually did anything?
Not really. It was just the spur of the moment.
That's an important lesson, because you always think like there's a process, but it can be very different. Huh?
It can happen like that.
And we know now, like, putting time and space between people who are maybe having some depressing thoughts or acting a little bit different, or if you're concerned about them, just putting some time and space between them and lethal means, especially weapons, can save a life. And so that's like one of the most important things that we want to share. Besides, also, if you're a teen out there, mental health issues are perfectly normal during that hormonal time. Just ask for help and reach out to anyone. It might be a school counselor, it might be your doctor, it might be a nurse, it might be a friend. Just to talk to someone. There's 988. There's also, you can text 741-741 and text talk to that, and you can reach out to people.
And we share those numbers throughout. So one thing before I ask them that, you had some physical injury then from this. How are you? How's your health now?
So I have left-sided weakness due to the
Injury.
suicide attempt.
But you can work okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
I wear a AFO, a leg brace. My hand doesn't work, but I still use my arm to open things and.
You make do.
Yeah. I've really adapted to my left side being disabled.
Good for you. And it doesn't get in the way of a good life.
No.
Good. We're going to give you the final thought in just a moment, but I want to ask you a little bit about this zero goal. So whoever the person is that's appropriate, what are some of the things that are part of that goal, and how do we help?
That's a great question. Just to piggyback off what Tanya was saying, what we know is that there's many misconceptions and myths about what can effectively reduce rates of death by suicide. And what we know is one of those most effective strategies is time and distance between highly lethal means, including firearms. And for the next year, we are really focusing our efforts on training our workforce, starting with our Mental and Behavioral Health Institute, which includes our Division of Psychiatry, Behavioral Medicine and Clinical Psychology, and Developmental and Behavioral Pediatrics, on an intervention called Counseling on Access to Lethal Means, or CALM, and partnering with our folks in our Firearms Injury Task Force to create a VR virtual reality simulation.
I've been in that area, yes. And what's interesting about it is how you approach can make a big difference in whether or not a family will tell you what's in their home.
Absolutely, and it's really about joining and aligning with families.
So what about you? If you have someone watching today, here's a few things we'd like you to know that might help you interrupt another Kevin or get them to the right place.
Yeah, I think we think about sort of multiple layers in how we can try to prevent youth suicide. One of the important things that we're doing better than ever before is in screening individuals for the risk for suicide, and when we identify that, trying to use evidence-based methods to assess for that.
At the pediatricians or where?
Exactly. So primary care pediatricians, primary care providers these days are well acquainted with the importance of this and the national recommendations for universal screening, and we see that being able to further assess in all different kinds of settings helps us understand this risk.
And we're running part of your website because we want people to know you have quite a comprehensive website.
This is a national program. So Zero Suicide was an initiative developed about 15 to 20 years ago with a group of experts in the field of suicidology and healthcare settings due to increased recognition that the majority of youth and young adults who die by suicide visit a healthcare system within 30 days and nearly all within a year before they die. And through those efforts, that's demonstrated on that website, there's been really amazing results at different healthcare systems, including Henry Ford as really the pioneer in this space. And
meaning numbers have dropped.
Yes. And so we are adopting that framework, which is a national program, which you highlighted.
No, that's great. So, and if we use big words here, we have to define them. So suicidology is the study of what leads to the suicide.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we want to make sure you have the final word. What are you thinking about that we need to say today?
This too shall pass. This too shall pass.
You know what? That is those are very wise words. You should be incredibly proud.
I am very proud.
Extremely.
You should be.
Good for you. And you know what? I am just so grateful. I just want to thank you for letting us talk about this and being real with your story, because you will help so many people. Yeah, we're grateful. We're sorry for what you've been through, but we are grateful that you're willing to share it with us.
Have you here.
Yeah, good to have you here.
Yeah.
We all feel that way, don't we, Dave? Thanks for what you do. We appreciate it. We're going to continue this conversation. Once again, if you'd like to find out more information, if someone you love, you're really worried about, reach out to them. We'll have a link to this team and more at what'shappeninginhealth.com. Nice job, guys. Appreciate it very much. He did do well. All right, up next, a new look at how weight loss helps body and soul. It's not just the physical benefits. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Network for Hope, William E. Hesh Law, and Serene Sweets.
In Wait No More, there may be yet another hidden benefit to weight loss beyond just helping your heart and your joints. New research from University of Utah Health found patients who had weight loss surgery got the biggest mental health benefit, not from losing weight, but from less stigma. Of course, we know weight stigma in society can lead to all kinds of things, and when we didn't have that, they had better mental health as well as ate better. Weight stigma is associated now with depression, anxiety, and worse eating habits. In You're So Vain today, your dental health impacts your vascular system, and it turns out new research shows us early treatment of children's cavities can stop progression of dental decay for years. A study by NYU College of Dentistry looked at 1,600 New York City children ages 5 to 13 who had cavities in one or more teeth. Researchers applied 2 non-surgical topical treatments twice a year and found both kept most dental decay from getting worse. It's estimated kids miss 34 million hours of school every year because of dental emergencies. All right, you hear that? Just ahead, how the sounds of birds help us heal. Here to explain the nature prescription, as we call it, we welcome Dr. Colleen Thomas Phillips. She is here from the Glenwood Behavioral Health Center. And we welcome the team from Off the List. It's all coming up in our next half hour. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
The headline medical stories that affect you and your family. This is What's Happening in Health, sponsored by TriHealth.
Morning, everybody. Welcome back to our third half hour here on What's Happening in Health. Got a great rest of the show for you. We start with waiting for life and the importance of becoming a living organ donor. We have a great family to introduce you to in-house. Darcy Gibson is here from Off the List. She's here with Leroy, who's waiting for a kidney, Jenny, and that's his daughter, and she's his kidney champion as well. And then their little granddaughter, Abigail, here. She's just 4 years old. So glad to have all of you with us today. And we have a great team that helps answer your questions about minding your health. Here from Glenwood Behavioral Health Hospital, we welcome the Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Colleen Thomas Phillips. She is here with how nature can help us heal. We'll be talking more about that. But first, quick warning today about mosquitoes from the TriHealth Infectious Disease team. We're already seeing a lot of reasons to protect against these critters.
We still worry about West Nile, which is a mosquito-borne disease. We always see a few cases of that in the summertime, and it's hard to predict how that's going to be. We've had a lot of rain. That usually means more mosquitoes.
Now, part of the problem, West Nile virus now going around. It has symptoms that can mimic the flu, so you could have this virus and not even connect it to a bug bite. Here's the warning signs: fever, headache, body aches, fatigue, nausea, vomiting. You should seek medical attention if these get worse instead of better. All right, also topping this half hour, our donor of the week. She doesn't wear a cape, but her quiet commitment, nothing short of heroic. This is Megan DeWitt, and she's been donating blood since she was a teenager in high school and has recently taken the time to switch over to platelet donations for a good cause. She says it's something she feels called to do quietly without this kind of recognition.
I feel like I'm a silent hero, so I don't have to tell anybody. Nobody knows. It's just like, this is what I do to give back.
We appreciate that. If you'd like to donate this month, got a few things to say thank you. A gift card from Big B for coffee. It's all part of Hawksworth Summer Fun Days. And to make an appointment, call 513-451-0910. Those appointments are promised to area hospitals, so we know how much blood we have. All right, just ahead, the health benefits of gardening, why it's really good for you to dig in the dirt. We'll talk to you about it in Aging Gracefully. And our team from Off the List coming right back, along with Colleen. She is here from Glenwood Behavioral Health. Stay with us on what's happening in health.
This portion is sponsored by Good Samaritan College of Nursing and Health Science and the Mental Health Recovery Board of Warren and Clinton Counties.
In Aging Gracefully today, gardening really good for you, and those who enjoy it may live longer than the rest of us. This is the gardening group from Life Enriching Communities. They have a group that meets each week to tend to this garden. They also work it and fund it. The added health benefits that they all say, just a bonus for doing what they love every day.
The benefits of this garden is that it fosters resident involvement and in multiple ways of wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, physical wellness, vocational wellness, and just keeps them active and also serves to beautify our campus.
The gardening groups and much more part of the community. If you'd like to participate, call 877-532-1899. All right, on now to Waiting for Life. We have a wonderful segment here where we talk about living kidney donation. And you need a kidney.
Yes.
Tell me about you.
My grandfather, I didn't know I had kidney disease, and it snuck up on me. Through a doctor's appointment, they said there's something wrong with your kidney, and we kept going on, and I didn't pay much attention to it because it didn't affect me at the time. And then my numbers went down, and they told me there's only one way. Right at first, they told me I wasn't eligible, and then another doctor said, "Well, why not? It took 60 years for your kidney to crap out. You know, we can get you a kidney." And so I started on this journey, and then I've learned more about it, and it's like kidney disease is really deadly. I didn't know, and now from suffering from the effects, you know, everybody gets tired, and kidney disease is a different kind of tired. But you can't sleep either. It's a weird thing. You'll fall asleep for 2 hours and then you're wide awake. So you wake up in the middle of the night, and it's just draining. And then you think about, oh my God, I need a kidney. If I don't, they start a morality clock when you start dialysis. And I said, the morality clock, what is that? You know, and it's like, well, here, most average people on dialysis at your age will be dead within 6 years.
No.
And so I'm thinking, oh, you just gave me a death sentence, you know?
But we're here today because we're going to change that. So Champion, tell me a little bit about your little girl and this wonderful organization that's helping you.
So we linked up with Darcy and Off the List, learning more about this because it was something that we really had to learn. So I have 4 kids, and I know for me, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents and loved every second of it because you got away with more stuff. They spoil you a little bit more. So I know with Grandpa, the kids love, he brings over donuts and cookies and different things like that. They go on walks to see the ducks and things like that. And I want them to be able to experience all the years with their grandparents, just like I got to experience.
Grandparents have wisdom. You do what we do in TV when you see your hair, you play with it and all that. I was telling you to put your hands down because you were hitting your mic. And then TV, we can hear that. So, Abigail, what do you love about Grandpa? Can you say everything?
Having donuts.
Having donuts! There we go. So, Darcy's holding you. You make a lot of friends in this business, don't you?
do.
And a living kidney would be ideal for him. So tell me a little bit about your organization and how you help.
Yes, so we help give people like Lee and his family the tools to help them find those living donors. So just walking through all the different things that we can do to help get the story out there, raising awareness, creating conversation, educating people that you can live a full, healthy life with just one kidney, and you can donate while you're alive. It's not something that you have to wait until you pass away. And we want people to know that that's
really
an option.
important. Yeah, we have a few photos of you. So what would having a kidney donor, how would it change your life right now?
I wouldn't be worried about everyday things. My wife has early onset Alzheimer's, and it's hard. I want to be there for her. And if, I need to help her and it would change that, I would be able to help her more, and I would be able to play with these guys, It's like, I've been grounded for my one grandson at one time because I took him on a helicopter ride without permission.
We love that adventurous spirit. Let's make sure people know then how to find you, and if we're interested in donating. Darcy, what's the best way to do that?
Right, so the best way really is he has a Facebook page called Life for Lee, and we encourage people to like and follow that page and learn more about his story. And on there also he's listed at the Christ Hospital, and so there is information on there to contact a coordinator to ask questions and learn more.
You are so cute. She's like herself on TV. But that's just great. She picked up your sense of humor. All right, champion, we want to give you the final word. What is it that we should know about him that might just say, hey, if you could even consider being tested, how would this change your lives?
It would give me more time with my dad. He's always been an encourager. He's always helped other people. And the fact that he's given so much of his life to help other people, having him be around longer to continue to help people, to do what he's really good at doing, to bring, family time, to bring that laughter, to bring that humor, to bring just that final thought or a different perspective on things. And to be able to, when something goes wrong in the house or, anything like that, when there's something I can't do, I've always been able to pick up that phone and call Dad, and he's always been there. So to have that, I haven't had enough years and enough time, and the kids haven't. And so to be able to experience that and have that is something that is important for me, and I believe is important for my kids too, because they ask about him every day.
Well, I can see why. Thank you for keeping your sense of humor in all this. We do have a link to, one more time, the Facebook page is
Life for Lee.
Life for Lee. We're putting that at what'shappeninginhealth.com, as well as the number for the Christ Hospital. You can reach out and donate. It's a simple cheek swab just to get started to see if you might be a match. We're going to follow this story, put you on the prayer list for miracles.
Yes.
We believe in him here. Yes. And you were perfect, Abigail. Thank you.
Thank you, Grandpa.
Oh. Hard to top that.
Yeah.
All right. Just ahead, injecting Botox into your jaw. It's not just wrinkle reducing. And we welcome the Chief Executive Officer of Glenwood Behavioral Health, Colleen Thomas Phillips. She's here with how to share nature to help us heal. Stay with us on What's Happening in Health.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Northern Kentucky Audiology, the Center for Closing the Health Gap, and Journey Light.
On now to Dr. Colleen Thomas Phillips, the CEO of Glenwood Behavioral Health. We know that you are a fan of using nature to help us heal. Tell me about that.
Just thinking about, everyday life. When you're sitting outside and you're just listening to bird sounds, for example, it does something to our sympathetic nervous system and parasympathetic nervous system. It helps us feel calm. It helps reduce anxiety and stress. And it's just a natural way for people to reduce
sort of the symptoms when you're sitting out there. You're like, so talk to me. The reason we wanted to bring this up is there's so much screen time now.
Yes. Yeah, and people, it's important that they step away from the screen time, right? Because that also increases anxiety for some individuals depending on how they're interpreting what they're seeing. And so in our hospital, or just a natural way for people to get out and step away from the day-to-day, the hustle and bustle, the anxiety that work stress, comparison to what's happening on social media can bring to individuals, it's nice to just sit and listen. And that helps reduce that anxiety. It helps relieve some stress. And in our hospital, for example, we have comfort rooms. In those spaces, our patients can get away from that milieu area where you have people walking up and down hallways and talking, et cetera, and really be in the space and listen to music, listen to something like bird sounds, and really kind of sit with that and help reduce some of the anxiety, some of the stress that they might be feeling or facing in a clinical setting.
I love that we've done that, where we've sort of decided it's not just about counseling, or it's not just about medication,
Yes.
it's about the whole life cycle. But for people not familiar with Glenwood, tell us a little bit about your services, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, so we're providing support to individuals seeking inpatient treatment. So if you are suffering from depression, anxiety, you might be diagnosed with schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder, you might want to come in and get some support. We also, for individuals that might be working and adolescents going to school, they might need some support outside of those settings. We have outpatient services, so individuals can come in and get those supports in that environment as well. So for anyone, we complete assessments when individuals come in. So if they need inpatient treatment, we'll assess for that and we'll provide that support. And if they need the outpatient services, we'll provide that as well. And one thing that's unique to the program that we're offering right now is adolescents, they will receive education coming to our hospital. So they're not missing out on their learning experiences if they have to engage in educational services as well. So
Wow, that's really important, because you don't want them to miss that. Okay, we have a phone number for your hospital. I know you talk to people 24 hours a day. You'll assess, you'll get them in. 877-707-2612. We want to thank you for that. Coming back, we are going to play some information about bird sounds and continue to share more on our mental health theme. Dr. Colleen Thomas Phillip, thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back.
This portion of What's Happening in Health is sponsored by Mount St. Joseph University, Elder Law Lawyers, and Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center.
Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, when we talked to our team at Glenwood, we were talking about nature and bird sounds. So it may not be the usual thing that you think about when it comes to outdoor healing, but new research shows listening to birds does have health benefits.
If you listen, it's captivating. But while most of us are running around loving the great outdoors,
it's just soul healing. Like the last couple of days with it being so nice and sunny outside, it's just like a complete pivot in my mental health.
we don't realize if we tune in, our mental health could get an added boost with the soothing melody of birds. After ruling out the benefits of blue and green spaces, things like seeing trees and hearing running water, researchers found a whole host of benefits to hearing birds on our mental health that can last up to 8 hours. Part of that benefit may come from focus. It's sort of like yoga, mindfulness for your brain.
Mindfulness is really the art, actually, of paying attention to the present moment as it is without judgment.
When you see birds, they simply command your attention.
It can be a practice that you do anytime during the day, just to stop and pay attention and notice maybe your body, maybe your breathing, or even just focusing on one thing at a time can be a mindfulness practice.
But those who watch and listen in the way you just have to watch birds also appear to have less anxiety, depression, and stress in the aftermath.
Now you can listen to the same sounds or diverse sounds, researchers say, and get these same benefits. You also heard Colleen mention too much screen time, not good for kids, and it does turn out that it leads to a dangerous cycle. A study published by the American Psychological Association showed that increased screen time for kids ages 10 and younger can lead to emotional and behavioral problems such as depression and anxiety. And those emotional problems can then lead kids to seek even more screen time to cope. Researchers say girls are particularly susceptible to the harms of too much screen time. In Body by Design today, a dangerous trend reemerging on social media. You know that on many platforms, they use influencers to promote products. Now there's a new kind of influencer popping up, according to Smart Brief on Media and Entertainment. They're called SIGfluencers. As you might have guessed, they are celebrities and sometimes even fictional characters that are smoking without the stigma, as they say. This then carries over into other media, such as movies. Lung specialists remind us, however, this can influence young people to pick up this habit and raise the risk of harm to both body and lungs. In Look Good, Feel Better today, there's a newer trend in using Botox, and it's not to reduce wrinkles. This is video from the team from the Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center injecting Botox into the masseter. Now, that is primarily a chewing muscle. It's located on the sides of the face. It's being used to lift the face from people who use weight loss medications to slim down and now have Ozempic face.
So we're talking about masseteric Botox. We have a large muscle in our jaw, our chewing muscle, called the masseter, and we can inject Botox into that muscle to modify the strength of it or the appearance of the jawline.
You can find out more information about this by calling the Advanced Cosmetic Surgery and Laser Center, 513-351-3223. In Healthy Conditions today, a new study that is published in the Journal of the Society for Neuroscience looked at the way stress can make sleep quality worse and impair your memory. Researchers artificially activated neurons linked to stress in mice, which led mice to sleep less and impaired how well the mice performed in memory tasks. The research could help explore ways to improve sleep and cognitive deficits related to stress and sleep disorders. In Healthy Diversity today, the idea that it just takes grit in life to get through may not be or may be harmful to your mental health and may not be good for you. It's important to give yourself a little grace. If you've been pushing to make things happen, it may take more than grit, according to public health providers. We talked to Renee Mahaffey-Harris from the Center for Closing the Health Gap about this idea last week on What's Happening in Health. Here's what she told us.
Teaching young women that it's okay to endure actually is not the best solution. It's that you have to have self-care. You have to take time to breathe and learn those ways to really calm your brain so that it doesn't ultimately impact your speedier path to disease factors such as cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome. So you never really think about the fact that kind of just keep going, and that grit, as that article referred to, being elevated is what you should do, has a negative impact on your physiological outcomes as you age.
Renee also says focusing on progress, building social support, cultivating a sense of purpose, and asking for help are all other ways to get through some of the tough stuff.
How can I truly help these women feel like women again?
Cheryl Kirkland and her mother, Bet Ann Leader, founded Find Your Fabulicity. It is a nonprofit centered around donating new lipstick to women in terrible situations. Their Get Help bag consists of lipstick and a bracelet to help give strength to women. There's been more than 10,000 lipsticks donated nationwide.
It's really, really important that we know as women we can come together collectively and do something good for those that need us.
The Circle of Care extends to all 50 states to more than 300 women's domestic violence shelters. If you or someone you know is in trouble, we remind you can call the National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233. New way to measure a person's blood pressure could help the thousands of people who can't have their blood pressure taken on the arm. This according to a study published in the British medical journal Open. Researchers looked at data from more than 33,000 people and developed an online calculator to better interpret blood pressure measurements from ankle readings. They say it could be a useful tool for people unable to have blood pressure taken on the arm because of certain medical conditions. In stroke research, the journal Neurology saying that stroke stroke, dementia, and depression more common in people with a specific biomarker of aging. Harvard medical researchers say a healthy lifestyle, however, helps take this effect away. They didn't find the biomarker in people that were eating right and exercising and keeping cholesterol levels low, as well as blood pressure. And finally today, a troubling trend from deaths from alcohol associated with liver disease. Researchers say that particularly in groups of women, they found, as well as younger adults, that more people are drinking, and that underscores the need for public health intervention. That is it today for what we are learning here on What's Happening in Health. We'll be back same time next week. Hope you will be too. Until then, everybody, stay well and stay tuned.